It's my pleasure to introduce you to Arianna Becerril-García. Arianna is a full-time researcher and professor in the areas of like the computer engineering at the Autonomous University of the State of Mexico, UAEM. She's a member of the National System of Researchers, SNI, of Mexico. She has a wide range of qualifications. She has a doctorate, also a master's studies in the areas around computer science from Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. She is a member of the founding team of the network of scientific journals of Latin America and the Caribbean and Spain and Portugal, which I'm sure will know as the Redelic.org network. And she is currently executive director of Redelic. She's the founder and director of Amilica Open Knowledge. In addition, she's co-founder of the Mexican Network of Institutional Repositories and is part of the committee. She is also one of the directors of Invest in Open Infrastructure, IOI, and is also a member of the board of SCOS. Arianna has also worked with various layers of national and international conferences. Her lines of research are in open access. She also works with a range of IT in academic publishing and technologies, artificial intelligence, also the semantic web and linked open data. Wow, that's an amazing list, and we're very lucky to have you join us today. Anna's going to give us a presentation and we'll have about half an hour for questions. She will be talking about leveraging academy-owned open access publishing to achieve the equitable outcomes of scholarly communication and a perspective here from Latin America. So please enter your questions into the chat, and then we will host our questions after the presentation from Arianna. Okay, Arianna, so over to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Jeannie, for the invitation to join this meeting today. Hello, everyone. And I would like to share the perspective from the Latin American region, since we have been working for many decades on an academy-owned diamond open access as an endemic model in the publishing sector in Latin America. So I would like to share some ideas and the way we are working, or we have been working. And I would like to start by saying a couple of ideas here. We see that there is a clear fragmentation in the scholarly communication system worldwide. In terms of the North-South, I mean global North, global South, but also in the interaction, or perhaps no interaction, between commercial models and non-commercial ones. So we believe that science should be a global, participatory, and equitable conversation. But I think we haven't achieved this with the current models, the way we have been working in the different regions. So if we analyze the evolution of open access from our perspective in Latin America, 17 years after the Budapest Open Access Initiative, well, we have seen very positive results. We have each day more and more open access information literature, scientific literature, which is really good. But I have to say that we have missed different points or different aspects on the sustainability of open access in order to really enable an equitable landscape for everyone. So 17 years after the Budapest Declaration, we are seeing an increasing control of the knowledge production circuit by commercial publishers from different stages of the knowledge production circuit. We have everyday restrictions on the rise, restrictions on where when or how to deposit, for example. We are also seeing a slow transition from the publishing sector, and I'm just put the example of publishing sector, but it's not the only one, to digital technologies, which is both slow and disappointing. We are seeing also, we continue seeing journals published in PDF format, which is not the most suitable format, for example, for discoverability purposes or for structuring of data that enables linked open data, for example. So it is not really the publishing sector, and open access is not taking advantage of new technologies. And well, last but not least, we are living in the middle of a research assessment system, which is based on the industry of prestige, based on impact factor metrics or similar metrics, which are deficient, which are non-transparent, which are mainly offered by proprietary services, where the great majority, and please see this, the great majority of the best ranked publications are published by commercial corporations, which is perhaps on purpose, right? So around from 84% of the best ranked publications in, for example, Web of Science or Scopus come from the commercial sector, and with a concerning lack of visibility of publications published in countries from the Global South. And this is not a matter of quality, I have to say that. And finally, regarding the business models, a new exclusionary landscape is emerging, and we have to be very careful about this, because a flip from pay to read to pay to publish models is happening, the so-called APCs, where once again, less resource researchers are excluded, where countries, academic institutions, and the research community do not have the control beyond commercial agreements. And this, we can see this with the transformative agreements and initiatives like that. So this is exactly the history of the subscription model that started 70 or maybe 80 years ago. But now we are seeing that a new exclusionary model is just emerging. So this is a little bit concerning. And I wonder, is it the most creative approach we could design to address the root problem? So we have to be very conscious and very careful in what decisions are we making today. Because as Jean-Claude Guédon points out, the cost of communicating scientific research is a tiny fraction of the cost of research, somewhere between 1% and 2%. So why should we ask that particular phase of the research cycle to obey financial rules while the overwhelming part of scientific research has to be constantly subsidized? It's a paradox. What role will the academic community play to face this challenge? We have to think about it. What will be the role of universities and libraries? And we have to think if we are willing to reduce the communication of research to accountability projects once again, now based on the APC and other business models like that. Especially when we are living in this digital era, where new technologies enable a scenario with the potential to redraw the landscape and bring new possibilities for other models to be competitive and even disruptive. So we have to be very, very thoughtful about these 4 dimensions: research and journal assessment, quality, organic visibility, and non-proprietary prestige, which is allowed by new technologies, and new workflows, editorial workflows, and also the technology for efficiency and sustainability, which is that we are very focused on in Latin America. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So it is very important, because I agree that the debate on open access is a debate about the future of academia. So the decisions we are making today around open access could impact directly of the new or the future of academia. We maybe this approach is a little bit reductionist, but it just a didactic way to explain that we have some models that see science as a commodity and other models that see science as a public good. Normally, the science as public good approach is based on academia-owned, open access, is APC-free. In particular, in Latin America, we are looking that also for technology to leverage this approach, can be multilingual, for example, and non-impact factor based. In the opposite, we see the science as a commodity, which is dominated by the university rankings, now by the APC transformation, transformative agreements, impact factor or similar metrics based research assessment, and owned mainly by commercial companies. So I would like you to think that which kind of model will enable equity, bibliodiversity, immediate open access, no pay to read and no pay to publish, and perhaps the most important, the control by the academic community, and also the publishing sustainability. We have to think about the future. Well, in Latin America has created and maintains a non-commercial infrastructure where scientific publishing belongs to academic institutions and also institutional repositories, and not to large publishers. There's no fees, neither for authors, not for readers in the regional editorial tradition. Every institution, and perhaps this is the key of this ecosystem, because every university, research center, organization supports journals or institutional repositories. I'm sorry, because I always mentioning journals because I'm more in the publishing sector, but also institutional repositories that are driven by their own faculty members. So researchers are in control of publishing journals and making decisions around the journals, sustainability, and all these publishing sector in Latin America is sustained by universities or governments or the public health sector, for example, where a lot of public money is involved. So everyone gets benefit from everyone's investment. And this is the model behind this. So it is a universal benefit and everyone cooperates in each layer, let's say, of the ecosystem. So if we see this, this environment as an ecosystem, we have, well, a lot of hundreds of universities and research organizations that are publishing journals, for example, or publishing institutional repositories in charge of guaranteeing or securing the quality of the publications. And then above that, in another layer, we have different non-profit initiatives, in this case, as the one that I represent today, Redalic, but also as Cielo, La Referencia, Latindex, CLAC, so a lot of initiatives that provide added value services to journals published by universities. So in this sense, there are key factors, which are cooperation, networking, crowdsourcing, open source software, in a kind of distributed investment with a universal benefit, as I said. So if we analyze quickly, because I don't have too much time, but if we analyze, for example, the collaborations among researchers based on the databases corpus compared to the same analysis based on the Redalic database, we can see obviously different behaviors. So if we judge or if we assess the researchers' impact or the researchers' performance based on Scopus, you can see that mainly the gravity center of the collaboration is based in Europe or perhaps in North America. And in the case of Redalic, you can see that, well, yes, there's a lot of interactions with those countries, but also with a lot of countries from the South. So this is very interesting. So we have to be careful also not to confuse the map with the territory, especially because, as I said before, the mainstream databases, or the ones that are considered the mainstream databases, mainly the commercial publishing is appearing there. So academic owned journals, for example, in Web of Science, are less than 12%. Academia-owned journals in Scopus are around 16%. So the rest of them are journals coming from commercial publishers. And this is, well, you can see these databases, which kind of journals are representing. And I insist, this is not because of quality all the time. So if we analyze this, for example, per quartile, you can see that in the first quartiles, obviously there is a low, very low presence of academia-owned journals. The majority of them are coming from the commercial sector. So, well, in Latin America, who sustains the nonprofit publishing? Mainly, as I said before, institutions, the universities, academic associations, government organizations, and the health sector, which almost 97% are nonprofit, and a lot of public resources are involved in here, around half of them. So we can see that from the mainstream perspective, there is a structural inequity, for example, in research assessment. So we can see here, for example, if we take the Imago Journal Rank, which is based on Scopus, if we see, for example, the number of journals that are present in that database, we can see that the Global South is almost well, invisible. If we see, for example, the number of papers is even worse. And if you analyze perhaps the performance of a country or a university or maybe a researcher in this database, you can assume that there's no science in the South, but this is obviously totally false. There is science, but this is not the channels where this science is being communicated. There are other channels. So if we see citations, it's terrible because you can see that almost, for example, Latin America disappear in the map because citations are not present in the Scopus database. So if you judge the quality, for example, or impact of the Latin American science based on Scopus, you can say that there's no quality science in Latin America, for example. But I insist this is not true, because the Latin American science is not being communicated in the commercial circuit. So in the case of Redalic, and I take a couple of slides just to show what we are doing in the Redalic initiative, we offer different added value services to journals in order to strengthen the model, which is academia-owned, immediate open access, no APC, not for profit, and technologically leveraged. So in this sense, a journal that the journal editor inside the university secures the quality, performs the review processes, the peer review processes inside the journal, and Redalic provide different services to enrich, for example, the quality, but also services in terms of interoperability and discoverability, in terms of metrics, and also a set of journal production tools. And this is perhaps the most valuable service that we are offering. In order, all of this, of course, is free to access for the journals we index. And this is to lower the cost of journal production. So the journals can keep their business models APC free. So there's lots of, just a quick view of the different services that we are providing. And recently we started to publish the content because we also index the full text in our servers. So we are working in the structuring of data with different formats, well, starting from the XML JATS format, and then convert this XML into RDF in order to publish different semantic collections and to allow the journals to reach another level of visibility, because we believe that technologies can bring this opportunity to connect every piece of information with an unrestricted cloud. so we can achieve organic visibility beyond the industry of prestige that sometimes is sold by these databases. These are our numbers right now, more than 1,300 index journals from more than 31 countries. Well, you can see if you can go to our webpage. And this is our mission to seek organic visibility, to help or to contribute to the sustainability of journals with these different workflow tools in order to lower the cost of journal production, and also to allow the automatic structuring of data. So, for example, a formula or a data that is inside a table, and when you publish it on the web, this piece of information can be connected to other pieces of information in order to really look for this organic connectivity and this organic impact. So we are in the middle of developing different search engines in order to exploit the benefits of this structuring of data, working with, for example, recently with La India and some other countries. So just to start closing the presentation, we have, for example, some open questions to the global community, to Plan S, for example, or to initiatives that are intended to globally transform or achieve open access, because we believe they have to know that it is possible to run non-profit publishing or non-profit open access with very good results that enable the participation of everyone. So we wonder how could different models coexist if the big funding flow is directed unequally. So we are seeing how a lot of money is now being spent on transformative agreements, and this is not happening with the non-profit model. So what are we doing is discouraging perhaps to continue subsidizing non-commercial business models, because the big funding flows are directed to, for example, transformative agreements. And as a consequence, for example, there's a great imitation of the commercial model. For example, in Latin America, lots, let's say not lots currently, but some journals are starting to charge APCs because they believe that they can get earn money for the sustainability, but also get profit for that. And this is not happening because they are not present in the mainstream databases, which are, by the way, the databases that are determining who is who in terms of prices in APCs, for example, right? So what will be the motivations for countries and institutions running non-commercial open access publishing to keep subsidizing the publication of foreign research? And this is very important because sometimes we think that the Latin American region is a silo that only publish the Latin American science, and it is not true. Around, almost 14% of the articles published in the Latin American journals come from non-Latin American authors. And this is very interesting because all these papers are not supposed to charge the author. For example, maybe a researcher coming from Europe can publish in a journal in Latin America without any fee. But this is not happening the same when a Latin American author wants to publish, for example, in an international journal from Europe, for example, because the majority of them are published by commercial corporations. So why not to address the root problem, which is, from our perspective, take back control of publishing or contribute to keeping it in the academic sector, which for us is, the key issue here. Some lessons learned from Latin America. We really believe that it is possible to run journal publishing on a not-for-profit basis, the non-APC. In a cooperative approach, everyone gets benefit from everyone's investment. So this is not naive, this is real. A distribution of cost among many stakeholders, universities, academic institutions, governments, well, national agencies, a lot of organizations involved. Journal publishing in hands of the academic sector promotes more inclusive scholarly communication and also more sustainable, and also, let's say, perhaps is the academic sector is always thinking on the development of the academic sector, not in finding or they're not in the sake of profit. So this is why perhaps it's healthier. And particularly the organizations where I am, America and Redalic, we are focusing our efforts on preserving academy-owned non-commercial publishing because we believe in this model by leveraging technologies to contribute in journal sustainability, to prevent the adoption of for-profit business models, and also by developing software and, for example, on the structuring of data, on editorial workflows, in such a way that impact and research assessment are dissociated from commercial databases. Well, some ideas. I'm sorry if I maybe did the presentation too quickly, but I think I don't have enough time. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Arianna. Do you want to stop sharing your screen and then we'll get everybody back on? Perfect. Thank you. We have a couple of questions coming in, so I'll ask them. And I do also just realize there's might be some noise behind me, so apologies for that. Thank you for that talk. It was just incredibly compelling and very passionate. It's one of the, it's great to see this model laid out. I think we definitely don't hear enough about it. We've got a question from Thomas Shafi, who's at La Trobe University, and he's asked, what do you think the greatest challenges to your Diamond OA model have been in Latin America that we could learn from?
Well, I think they are both. There are two main challenges right now. One is sustainability, and this is very, very important because, well, in fact, we have the support from governments and from universities, but unfortunately, and this is the second challenge, the research assessment is now changing and, well, leaving behind the journals that are published in the region because they are, well, qualifying or valuing as more important or more quality the journals that are indexed in the so-called mainstream. So this is, I think, the second big challenge to really evolve in our research systems, or perhaps stop, because in reality, in the past, we really have, for example, in Mexico, one national research assessment system that really was designed to assess journals that solve local problems and are with local quality control. So it was a really nice research system, but now it has been modified, changed to be transformed to adopt the impact factor metrics, and so it is not really good, and this is why many journals are about to disappear, and this has happened already in Colombia, for example. More than 300 journals started to receive less and less funds because they are not recognized by their national system. So because they are not in Scopus and not in Web of Science. And this is not a matter of quality, I insist, it's a matter of where you are visible or not.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And in fact, there's a few comments coming into the chat about how research assessment is such a problem in this area. Anne Scott, who's in at Christchurch University, Canterbury University, has asked, how is impact measured for Latin American academics? Is there a particular system?
Well, yes, and I have to say the same. it used to be good. It used to value the performance of our researchers in terms of the social applicability of the research and different aspects. But now it's being transformed into the ranking based and impact factor based. But this is very recent. This started to happen from 1 decade ago. So that is why, in fact, Amelica started, because we are seeing this transformation in a bad sense, and different institutions get in this coalition called Amelica, which are trying together to stop this transition that is not good for the non-commercial sector.
Okay, I think you might just have answered the question about how long the models existed. There was a question from Lukman, who is at Auckland University of Technology. Could I just ask one more question, then perhaps we probably should let you go, get back to your evening. What do you think you talk about lots of institutions, you've got, hundreds of universities that are involved within this. Do you think there's a sort of certain amount of number of institutions that need to be involved to make this worthwhile, to make it work, make the system work?
Well, yes, we have a diversity of institutions. We have a lot of institutions that really are more aware of the consequences, for example, of this research assessment. But the big universities perhaps are the most, perhaps with more impact, and that perhaps the ones that are changing now. So that's why we are working with almost, more than 600 universities around the Latin American region, but there's really a diversity of institutions. So it's kind of difficult sometimes to agree on some things, but we agree on few principles. That's why Amelica and Red League are also initiatives driven by principles. So all the journals that come to our systems come with they are aware that they accept the principles, and this is a base for discussion and to start working together.
Great, thanks. I'll pass back to Martin now.
Thanks, Ginny. So it's just my role to extend our thanks to you, Arianna. That was a really interesting speech and gave us a lot of insight and I think inspiration that there are other models out there that can work really, really well. So I'm sure we'll be in touch and have a few more questions for you later as we go. And I'll also see you later on the SCOS board. Yeah. Great. All right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.